Hi, this is Elizabeth of Spot's Household. Um, we wanted to speak a little bit today about capitalism and the Bible. And that's a little bit of an unusual subject. And before we do that, we wanted to do a favor for Caliban when he did his video earlier. He mentioned the one sword in Three Heavens School of Bushido, and he couldn't find the button, but he did. Um, There's this thing called white evangelicals, which of course is not a thing. Evangelicals, I mean, it speaks to witnessing a new truth. And so the idea of the message being sent by a fascist, right-wing, racist group being based in the Bible is just nonsense. And one of the worst aspects of this is these people. I mean, there was one person who commented recently on a YouTube discussion about how, no true Christian could be a Democrat because the Republicans are opposed infanticides and support a free market. As if capitalism is something that is written into the Bible. And of course, almost anyone out there is probably, at least half the people out there are probably aware that the only person in the in which Jesus Christ, as portrayed in the Bible, offered violence to, in other words, someone who Jesus Christ attacked physically, were the money changers at the temple. And to understand this in terms of historical context, you have to remember is that the Romans were the first people to introduce the modern idea of a currency. The idea that they produced coins made of base metal. In other words, metal that wasn't inherently valuable. Copper, well, actually, copper is valuable, but cheaper metal, nickels and stuff like that. And the value of the coin wasn't the value of what the coin was made of, but the fact that the Roman Empire said this coin is worth this much because we say so, and we're the most powerful people on the planet. So, yeah, take our word for it. In other words, like paper money, only it was made of metal. And this was not suitable currency for a transaction within the Jewish temples. And so it had the sacrifices bought to be offered at Jewish temples had to be bought with real money that was actually worth something based on what that money was made of, not on the abstract value that a government was telling you it was worth something. And so they changed money in order to sell sacrifices. And so people who conducted their basic living using Roman currency would go into the temple and exchange that currency for real money in order to buy a sacrifice. And it was kind of like not a clear-cut, pure thing. It was kind of a corruption, allowing a loophole in which this corruption of the idea of currency could be entered into the rites of the religion. And so Jesus reacted to this and threw them out and used a whip to drive them out. And in most likelihood, in terms of historical references, this is what he was crucified for fighting capitalism. That's the Bible. And that's the Bible, the only one of the few parts of the Bible that is supported by historic fact. that Jesus was opposed to capitalism. And you know something else? Tax collectors. Now, when we think tax collectors, we're thinking IRS, deep state, secret civil service, government employees. That's not how taxes were collected in the Roman Empire. They were collected through tax farmers. This meant a very the government, the emperor, would send out the desire to collect taxes and would sell out the right to collect taxes. So Trump would call up Bloomberg in New York and say, we're collecting taxes. Do you want to buy the right to collect taxes in New York State and maybe a little bit in New Jersey? Who knows? Way into, the Northeast until we get to the Kennedy's territory, or Como's or whoever. And so they would divvy out. And so Como and Bloomberg and all these other people would buy the right to collect taxes in their various little territories. And they would sell out their taxes to other people who would collect taxes and subcontractors and all like that. So it was all capitalist empire. And of course, by the time you get to Carroll and Nostrand Street in Brooklyn, you're getting some people collecting taxes, Rocky Balboa style. That's the tax collectors in the Bible. We're talking capitalists. The Bible is dead hard against capitalism. And that is in there. Literal interpretation. By the literal interpretations, meaning the definition of literal interpretation of St. Thomas Aquinas, not the backwards interpretation of some of these right-wing nut bastards who are just collecting money in their sermons, which is why they want to keep open during the coronavirus, because they are capitalists. This is the thing. The Bible is not pro-capitalism. Jesus Christ was really, a long-haired socialist Jew. That's what he was. And to pretend otherwise is just to ignore it. And when we go back into fascism, and their attack on Jews, the whole national question and this anti-Semitic thing, because Jew is not national, it's both nationality and religion, and it's kind of vague, and it gives you the thing that you can apply it rather loosely too. So maybe if someone acts like a Jew, they are a Jew, or if someone doesn't act like a German, they aren't a German. It gives you this wiggle room. And that's why it's necessary for fascism to hate Jews, because it's both nationality and religion. It gives them the nationality to take away and apply rights absent of a rule of law. And so the thing to remember is that, the message of the New Testament, when and we understand the portion of some Christians feeling attacked. And we felt that. I mean, there is a problem that some people have been hurt by religion, and they have taken that personal hurt and transferred that hurt and not dealt with that hurt in such a way that they attack religion in lieu of politics. And so you get these people who, no one's mentioning religion, and all of a sudden they're mentioning religion as something on the right. And we have blasted that, because, in Charlottesville, when Heather died and all that shit went down, the religious people in Charlottesville were on the right side of things. And that was the truth. And yes, some people, You get these people who we try to present Caliban's crosses the way we do the buttons, busking them on the street, and it was just totally polarized. And a few people who stopped, there were a few people, and they didn't even buy crosses. They made a few donations, but they didn't buy crosses. They talked because we had crosses, and they talked to the idea of crosses, or what they thought was the idea of crosses. And one of the things we noticed was they were very strong on the Gospel of Mark. And the thing is that if you believe that the Bible speaks the truth, and you look at it and it has several Bibles talking the same story in different language, you have to understand that it's speaking the truth to different audiences and talking to them what they want to hear. And the interesting thing about Mark is that it is at a time when Christians were most oppressed by the Roman Empire, and they were being persecuted, and it's being embraced by white middle class male elderly men. People look a lot like me, though they might have made different life choices. They probably have trimmed their hair and beard a little bit better too. But anyway, the thing is that there's something wrong with that. It's the same thing that why is it that the most privileged people in our society somehow feel that they're the ones being oppressed? And within that is this understanding that somehow they're the ones being attacked. But there's also another element in there, and one we caught on to, and one that we've known about, that, there are people don't just full out become evil. They make compromises based on life choices. You know, you stand for one principle, you sacrifice one thing that you think is good, but which you think is less important than that principle you're supporting. And eventually that thing that you're supporting becomes more and more important because everything you sacrificed along the way has added to the value of that thing. And when you do that, it's like you come to the idea that if you accept capitalism and the idea of profiting in order to do more good for the society, you do more and more to gain profits, and you commit things along the way to achieve your goal. And so it's very hard to move from one economic strata to a higher strata, or even a higher and higher strata, without breaking a few eggs along the way. And so these people that I spoke to, they think they've done wrong. They know they've done wrong. And they think that somehow accepting Christianity will forgive the wrongs they've done. And because that's what Christ promises, that if you open your heart to Christ, He'll forgive your sins. But opening your heart to Christ means opening your heart, loving God through loving others. And so you cannot atone by your sins for all you've done to garner all your privilege. By making life harder for a young girl who's pregnant, or any of these other things that you're doing in the name of Christ. Because that's not opening your heart to Christ. Opening your heart to Christ means opening your heart to others.